Yeah, I grabbed a new, let's see, you guys can hear me, right? Um, Mardim, thank you very much. 10 months! You've been a subscriber for 10 months. Thank you! And Jill, also a subscriber for 10 months. Hype train incoming. I think I've had a hype train incoming like one other time in the entire time that I've streamed. So, I think that happens when you get like two people subbing at the same time. It's awesome. Um, yeah, so happy Monday. I was trying a new playlist for the stream is starting. And it's okay. I still like the disco track better. This was the running track, so I'm like, how do I dance weird to this? I don't know. So, sorry, I was shoveling down pasta because the day got away from me, and I was like, oh no, I gotta start the stream. I haven't eaten lunch. So, luckily, we're not face to face in person because I've got a garlic aroma now. So, I have many things. So first of all, my usual announcements. Are you following me and Jill on Quilt Nerding? I know many of you are. I'm probably everybody who's here right now is. But for the folks who watch in catch up on the replays, I'm putting the link in there. Please follow us. We are, so YouTube works a little differently than Twitch. And, one of the reasons why I started streaming on Twitch is obviously because Mary Fawns was streaming here, and I was her on-air producer for a while until she went into hiatus. And, Druid, I wish I could ever figure out this audio situation, because, like, on my end, it's like, let me see if I can raise the decibels a little bit. Did I help any? I don't know. I just always want to try not to have like that blasting people's eardrums and like that. Anyway. So, so streaming on Twitch, you can kind of fast track to having subscribers and an audience and all that stuff. And I mean, you guys get it. It's like, I could be here by myself doing my thing. If you build it, they will come. But, having the ability to do subscribers and ads, it helps manage all the time and energy and the equipment and all the stuff that's involved. So Twitch is a good place to start if you... Oh, Druid, yeah. Uh-huh. Because you do a music stream, right? And I bet it's, yeah. Well, I'll do better. I'll work on doing better. I want my mods, or I think right now you're my only mod, because Eva's kind of been a little MIA. I think her internet was bad. But anyway, I want to preserve your ears. So anyway, what I was talking about with Twitch, a lot of us are going to Twitch just because it's a unique place to be. We don't necessarily have the sort of ick that can happen on YouTube. Luckily, Jill and I have not had any ick over on YouTube with our with Quilt Nerding. But all of this is rife and open to icky people stopping by. But I always feel like Twitch is a little bit less so. But the thing about YouTube is they don't let you, pamper your watchers, your audience, your community. They don't allow you to have any kind of, subscribers. They don't allow you to do ads. None of that stuff until you have 500 subscribers or 500 followers. And so subscribers on YouTube is the same thing as followers on Twitch. So it gets confusing. But anyway, we're really trying very hard to get as many followers as possible there on YouTube, just because that's how you feed the algorithm. Now here on Twitch, I mean, would I love to have a bunch of followers and subscribers. I think right now I have 350 followers, I think. And I have about 25-ish subscribers. And that's a beautiful thing. I don't necessarily want to grow this channel into something enormous, because I can take my replays and put them on YouTube and kind of play that YouTube game, right? But here I like to keep it sort of a small and loving community. So yeah, that's just a little bit of probably not very helpful intel about streaming. And it was a long sort of lead up to just asking for follow us on YouTube. Even if you're not available to watch when Jill and I stream, or if you're not interested in what we talk about, it sort of helps, you know, if you just follow. And of course, you know, if you do watch, you know, like the videos, share them with other people, and put them on your social media. And, you know, we're more than happy to put our stuff out there. So anyway, and yes, Drew, this is like a clubhouse. This is like, yeah, you're the little audience that I invite into my space. And often you guys see the worst of me and you still come back, and you're my heroes for that. So anyway, long roundabout way of saying the internet is weird sometimes, so follow us everywhere. On Quilt Nerding, we are currently reading the Crazy Quilt book by Penny McMorris, and it got buried under my sunbonnet, so stuff. There we go. So this is what it looks like. Yes, Jill is always here for the worst. Yeah, she texts me and calls me at random times just so that she can find out, am I cranky? Am I gonna be like the worst person in the world? So Crazy Quilts by Penny McMorris is what we're reading right now. It's a fairly inexpensive out-of-print book. I think she wrote it in the 80s. But you could snag it off of eBooks or, you know, the online book things. We're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. I think maybe we have 2 more weeks in it, simply because it's got a lot of pictures. But I will have to say we have learned so much from this book, and we're continuing to learn. There's also a fun thing at the end. Once we're finished reading it, Jill works at the New England Quilt Museum, and there's a show there right now that kind of dovetails nicely. So when we're done reading it, we're going to get a virtual tour of that show. So hopefully that's good enough reason to stop by and see us. This week is also a Needlework Nights week, which we do every other week. And our topic this week is tomato pincushions. And so if you like needlework tools, and chances are if you sew, you probably have a needlework pincushion. Even if you don't, you've definitely seen them. Your grandmother or mother probably had one. So I think it's going to be a fun topic to look at, you know, what variations are there on, you know, the ubiquitous tomato pincushion. So that's what we're doing this week. What else? Oh, Merry Wither Wax is well underway. And if you don't know about that, it is, oops, I have to grab the right link. It is a sew-along that I'm doing, and I voluntold Jill that she's doing, and I think thus far maybe she has a half of a block worked. But I need to post all of my pictures because I'm doing it as a 100-day project, and I have one for every day so far. We are now 31 days in. So I've been working on my other project, and so I need to catch up, but I am on time right now. Probably as of tomorrow I won't be, so gotta do some sewing tonight. So if you have any interest in that, jumping in and joining us, I mean, there's plenty of time left. We're going until I think September 9th is the 100th day, so plenty of time. I'm putting that link in. The only requirement is that you buy the Merry Wither Wax pattern from our friend Dawn, and all of the information is in that link. If you get it, there's a download that has all the info. So, oh, and the last thing, I showed you the AQSG 19th Century Blues Quilt Study book that just came out. It's on YouTube or on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. Just search 19th Century Blues AQSG, you'll find it. And that's a quilt study, happens every 2 years, 50 people, study a quilt that aligns with a particular theme or topic. This year, the one that I'm participating in this year is a particular time period in the 20th century. But that last one, which started 2 years ago, I guess, 2021? Yeah, I think it's 2021 to 2023 was that study. I took video of the actual show, and we looked at it, and but it's been a while, so there's that link if you guys would like to take a look at that again. Do it after the show, though. Don't go look now. So I think that's everything. I think that's all the big stuff. Oh, okay. Thanks, Jill. Forgot to put my phone in airplane mode, so I'm seeing text messages. Okay. So what I have for you today is there's one more thing out of the Chintz book by MacIver Percival that we have been reading, where our famous Chintz came from, and a few other little snarky things. Published in 1923. There's one last thing I wanted to go through, and that is this timeline he gives, and it kind of sums up, everything that we talked about. So I thought I'd run through that real quick, and then I want to talk about McKim Studios, or Ruby Short McKim, who was a pattern designer in the early 20th century. And my intention was to quickly refresh my memory with her biography, and I didn't do that. So time just gets away from the cake, right? So I am going to look at that with you, and then I'm going to show you some cool stuff that relates to Ruby McKim. So let's do the Chintz book. So this is chapter 9, dates and landmarks in the history of chintzes and printed cottons. And as a reminder, this is the Chintz book by MacIver Percival, 1923. So in AD 70, don't worry, this is the one really ancient date, and then we fast forward. So AD 70, Pliny the Elder, there's a historical reference by him about chintz/printed cotton. Then we're going to fast forward to 1487. 1487, Portuguese traveler Pero de Covilham, and I'm guessing Pero. I don't know if that's like father, like is he a priest or a monk? I'm not sure, or if Pero is like a first name. I'm not sure. But Pero de Covilham visits Calicut, which would be Calcutta, and describes its possibilities for European trade. 1498, Vasco da Gama reaches Calicut. And in 1592, capture of a Portuguese vessel laden with Indian goods, including calicos, attracted English attention to the value of the Far Eastern trade. So you see in a year's time, a little more than a year's time, the Portuguese have really gotten their mitts on the Indian goods. The East India Company was founded in 1600. The East India Company allowed by royal proclamation to import, amongst other things, painted calicos. That happened in 1631. Jerome Lanier's patent was 1634, and I'm thinking that's roller printing, I think. Or maybe not. I'm trying to remember Jerome Lanier in here. I know he mentioned him. Pepys? I never know how to pronounce this man's name. He is the one that, it's Pepys, and I think somebody told me it's pronounced Pepys or Pepys. He wrote, it was his diary that was published, and it's fascinating because he's not only snarky, he's got tons of really, really, really good material culture information from the 1600s in his diary. But he, in 1663, writes about buying a chint to line his wife's new study, meaning the curtains and the hangings. In 1664, there was a dispute between Sir Martin Noel and the East India Company as to whether a calico be linen or no. I don't remember him talking about that, but in 1676, there was a grant to William Sherwin of a patent for the invention of a new and speedy way for painting broadcloth, being the only true way of East India printing and staining such kind of goods. In 1676, the first cotton was first printed in England. 1676. In 1677, there's a reference by Sir Josiah Child to imported cottons being printed in England in imitation of Indian chintzes. And we remember, at this time, the imported ones were for the really wealthy, and then you have the homegrown printing is for the middle class people, and then you get down to the poor people. They didn't get to wear chintz. In 1685, we have revocation of the Edict of Nantes. In 1690, calico printing works were established at Richmond. This would be Richmond in England, not Richmond, Virginia, where I went to school. And then in 1690, Neuhofer of Augsburg comes to England to learn the new way of printing. So England, they're always at the forefront of these things. They're always trying to be. In 1696, Hooke presents a piece of fast-colored printed chintz to the Royal Society. 1700, we've got the prohibition of imported Indian chintzes. This doesn't change things, if you remember. The wealthy still get the smuggled stuff, and it's probably worth even more. And there's a point where things are going crazy with the home-printed stuff. Excise tax of 2 pence per yard on home-printed calicos. That's 1702. Resist printing is practiced at Rouen, and that's 1709. And then in 1714, we have a tax on home-printed calicos increased to 6 pence. Now in 1719, remember, things are getting real dicey with the trades over there. So 1719, we've got pamphlets for and against the calico trade published. And, that's the weavers and the dyers who are like, the cotton and wool people are like, oh no, we can't, or the linen and wool people. So some of these titles are The Weaver's True Case, The Weaver's Pretenses Examined, A Brief Statement of the Question Between the Printed and Painted Calicos and the Woolen and Silk Manufacturers. Prohibition of English Printed Cottons, 1720. Permission granted to print on calicos with linen warp. So these are those maybe linsey, cottonsy stuff, or linsey woolsey. 1736. It would have been linen and wool, not linen and cotton. That's a U.S. thing. Willem Philippe Oberkampf is born, 1738. A publication of the letters of Father Cordu, fully describing the Indian processes of madder colors as used in their painted calicos. That was 1742, and we read his stuff in detail. The first textile printing works in France was founded in Mulhouse, Alsace, and that is 1746. 1750, the birth of the first Sir Robert Peel, the great calico printer. In 1750. 1752, Mrs. Delaney visits works at Drumcondra in Ireland, where linen was printed from copper plates. I'm thinking that maybe Jerome Lanier's patent was on the copper plates. I don't remember. So 1758, Oberkampf founds his works at Joy. Turkey red works were established at Rouen in 1760. Red print signed and dated R. Jones Old Ford, 1761. I'm assuming that this is something I don't remember him talking about, but I'm guessing it's an extant piece of, an extant textile that was able to be dated. Red print chinoise rays, Collins and Woolmer, 1766. Arkwright patents water frame or throstle, Throstle. I don't know what that is. I don't remember him talking about this either. That's 1769. The spinning jenny was patented by Hargreaves in 1770. Also in 1770, Taylor and Walker used wooden cylinder printing machine. So I'm guessing it's the 1700s when you get the cylinders. I was thinking of the engraved stuff. That's more flat. The first cotton printing works in Glasgow, 1771, so Scotland. In 1774, we have the repeal of prohibition of home printed calico and excise tax of 3 pence per yard. In 1770, the duty has been raised on imported. And in 1780, Crompton patents the mule jenny. 1782, duty is again raised to 15% of value. In 1784, calico printers were obliged to obtain a license. So licensing is required in 1784. 1785, Cartwright invents the power loom. So now we're really getting into industrial stuff. Also in 1785, Livesey, Hargreaves, Hall and Company's print works at Mornsey near Preston was founded. The following year, 1786, Earnhardt's printing works founded at Chelsea. 1787, copyright increased to 3 months. If you remember, I want to say they could only copyright stuff for like a month or two, and then there was an increase to 3 months. But still, 3 months. You didn't have very long to get your prints out there and that somebody else could steal them. Or not steal them, just take them. Because it's not stealing if the copyright only lasts 3 months. A tax of 3.5 pence on all linen and cotton fabrics for home consumption instead of former rates. That's also 1787. 1789, O'Brien publishes Calico Printer's Assistant. And in 1790, Nicholson's patent improved the cylinder machine. And finally, in 1809, Oberkampf introduces solid green printing. So, and I'm trying to think, we just read about Oberkampf the other day, but I think solid green printing is with the newer green printing ink, maybe, perhaps. You guys remember when was Scheele's green invented? Was that later in 1800s? Because the problem with green is that you typically had to do blue with yellow on top, and if either one of them was fugitive or just, faded, you would end up with blue leaves or yellow leaves. But I think Oberkampf's printing may have been the solid green that is green people were searching for. So that is the Chintz book. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised. Somebody had recommended it and said, hey, you should do the Chintz book. And I was like, But I went ahead and ordered it, and it had these beautiful plates, color plates in it. And I was like, all right, we'll give it a chance. I think it was fantastic, even though I still don't love Chintz. I'm not going to in-depth study it. I'm not going to collect it. But now I know enough about it that I'm good. And I hope you guys are good too. So, goodbye, MacIver. I can't imagine that we'll ever see him again. The other books he wrote were about antique furniture. He was clearly a Chippendale and Hepplewhite man. And he fans were another thing he wrote about. All right. Let us start looking at Ruby Short McKim. Now, she was a designer in the early 20th century. She had a studio. And let me find, I'm absolutely positive that the Quilters Hall of Fame will have some info about her. So let's look them up. And let me give you guys the link to that in case you want to check them out. They have lots of good stuff in here, and they have anybody who's been inducted. They have a really good bio about them. Okay. All right, here we go. So she was a 2002 honoree of Quilters Hall of Fame. That's interesting because, Dr. Dunton, my guy, he got inducted in 1977 or 78. Okay, so she went to art school. So she was a legit artist. And she did have a studio. And her husband and I believe son helped with the business. So I'm going to share my screen. I know I usually love doing just internet searching online, but let's look at this. Okay. So it's a picture of her. She's a lovely woman. And we can see here that she developed her views of art at the New York School of Fine and Applied Arts. So it's pretty prestigious. So let's see. The driving principle was that art is for the average person and art should fill the homes of all. Ruby's training in the arts opened the doors for her to flood the U.S. and other countries with her own art in the form of quilts, embroideries, and dolls. So she got her diploma in 1912. And then in 1916, the Kansas City Star, which was a big publisher of quilt stuff over the years, they held a quilt design contest as a promotion to sell the new book of bedtime stories by Thornton Burgess. And so she submitted her Quaddy Quilty bedtime quilt. And this is what the Quaddy Quilties look like. I don't love them. She had this very interesting style where everything was very like irregular, like jaggedy. Everything was with straight lines. She made everything with straight lines. And what's really interesting about these is they remind me a lot of modern foundation pieced blocks, right? Yeah, they're boxy. But if you think about the way that foundation piecing, and now I'm not talking about English paper piecing, but like foundation piecing where you literally like, you do a seam and you fold it out and do a seam and fold it out and you end up building this picture. But they tend to be sort of blocky because you're dealing with straight fabric lines. You're not dealing with curves. You try to make curves by using tiny pieces of fabric to make it look like a curve. But these were embroidery. But it's a very interesting, and I'm not exactly sure, what would have been her influence, 1916. We're not quite there with Art Nouveau. I don't think. So anyway, they're interesting looking. The quaddies are probably cuter than some of her other stuff, which we're going to look at. But they were kind of weird looking in my opinion. And then this is 1928. She published a series called Storybook People in Paint. And this is not as weird looking. So these kind of illustrations were a little bit more, I guess, normal. Jill, that's a good question. Did she keep straight lines for embroidery or cross stitch? The thing is that sometimes straight lines and, cross stitch, yes, I get what you're saying. Sometimes in embroidery, though, like, I feel like straight lines, when they meet another straight line, are difficult. Like, I think it's easier with embroidery to do curves, my opinion. Yeah. So, these are just more illustrations of her stuff. And while there was some piecing involved, my voice keeps going all wacky. You can see this one has got like it's like supposed to be like a little fence border. For the most part, her stuff was all, these embroidered squares that would just be put together, with sashing, and that's it. But there's one thing that I think is probably most identifiable about Ruby McKim's stuff is not necessarily this blocky thing, because although there are a lot of them that are like that, it is the print, this hand lettered thing that she did, and we're gonna look at that in a sec. What this one is, this is the Texas flower, whatever, and I'm not sure what this flower is, but you could see this is, she did whole, the United States flowers, and each one had an abbreviation for the state somewhere in it, and this one is for Texas. So we'll look at all of those. So 1931, this is the State Flower Quilt. 1931 seems like a big year. There was a lot of things happening for her in 1931. And I would say that's probably like the first few years of the 30s and maybe like the late 1920s too. Bluebonnet. Thank you, Robin. And hello, by the way. So she was just very prolific at that point in time, and her stuff was coming out a lot. So we're going to look at some that I have saved, and then also the book. So let me scoot back over here. So this is her book that's commonly referenced, 101 Patchwork Patterns. And this one is a Dover publication. It's a Dover reprint. And just when you thought Dover was only from like the 80s, this one was reprinted in 1962. I knew Dover was around. I just never really thought about the fact that Dover was, that they started their business, which I'm guessing again is reprinting old stuff, illustrations and things like that, old craft books. I really didn't think about it being a thing in the 60s, but it obviously was because of this book. So let us look at that. And, the breadcrumbs from my lunch. Put that there. And you know what? I don't think I ever said hello to everybody. Did I? Mod Art, Maro Dim, hello. Druid, my darling, as always. And Jill. And Robin. My regular peeps. Okay, let me move over to so you can see. Oh, well, that's weird. What is happening there? Am I on the right thing? Oh my gosh. All right. This is where my software decides to be real turdy. Okay, there we go. All right, let me get rid of the keyboard. So this is the book, 101 Patterns. And most of what you're going to see in it is, it's nothing exciting. It's, the patterns that we're all familiar with pretty much. But there's some really good stuff in here. So, one thing, first of all, before I get into this, I love used books because, of course they're cheaper. Used books also represent out of print books, so that they may be the only way you can get a book. And then you have stuff like this. So this is to Jan for browsing and future reference. February 21st, 1964, from Mom and Dad. And I'm wondering if this was for her birthday, because I'm thinking February 21st. What is that like? Is that MLK, President's Day? I can't remember what happens in February besides Valentine's Day. No, those are back until January, right? President's Day's in February, isn't it? I can't remember. Yeah. In any event, Arbor Day. Maybe she got it for Arbor Day. Anyway, so what this book says, it's Dover Publications, and it's telling us that it was copyrighted in 1962, but this is a reprint of the McKim Studios 1931 book. So, President's Day. Okay, so this was a grand President's Day gift. Now the question is, was President's Day a thing in 1962? I feel like maybe we were still doing it like Washington's birthday / Lincoln's birthday in February. I can't remember. One of my dear friends in Pennsylvania let me know that the federal holidays kind of got the revamp in, was it 1973? Okay, yeah, Robin remembers. It was still individual presidents' birthdays. Okay, so Washington's birthday, maybe? Lincoln's birthday? Who knows? So within this book, this is not a particularly thick book. You can see it's a little thicker than most of Dover's stuff, but it's still not a super thick book. But there's a lot in here. And I honestly think, like, if you're new to quilting, and you really want to learn about things like the old school way, I think this one's a pretty good one. You know, I mean, there's some kind of, you know, outdated stuff in here, but for the most part, it's good stuff. And you can see there's this huge list of all of the patterns that are in here, and then there's all this narrative packed around the patterns. So I thought we'd look at a few, and then I have some stuff to read you from here. So one of the other cool things is you've got names of blocks that in some cases are a little different than, you know, what we might be used to. You've got all the full-sized patterns, and then you kind of got a little you know, explanation of how these go together. Also, you have the information at the bottom that would have been printed in the newspaper if these are newspaper patterns. And I think for the most part, all of this stuff came from newspapers, or was also printed in newspapers. So now Jan, the person that owned this book, she had folded down the corner of a number of patterns, and you know, I'm curious to know, were they ones she just thought were interesting, or were they ones that she wanted to attempt? I don't know. So this is one kaleidoscope, and this is the print that I'm talking about. This hand lettering is so very specific. Like, you know, I'm sure today we have fonts that could be like this, and you know, but when you see this very artistic kind of hand lettering, you know you're looking at Ruby McKim. So even if the pattern itself is not the weird blocky stuff like her illustrations, you can still be sure that you've got Ruby McKim. There was another. Let's see. This one, Bird's Nest. I wasn't familiar with this pattern. You know, it's a variation on half square triangles, and I guess just squares set on point. But you know, some of these that this woman, girl, you know, that she flagged, you know, I don't know if they were ones she was interested in learning how to make, but she didn't pick the easy ones, that's for sure. Okay, so here is an example of the bird life quilt, and at first I thought, oh, I bet this is another one that might be difficult to find, because the Quaddies quilt, as far as I know, and I could be totally wrong about this, somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong about this probably, but I'm pretty sure that one never made it into a newspaper, the Quaddies. I think that one was marketed as a pattern that you could buy. This one, as I looked at this, I was like, oh, I know I've heard about a bird one, but I don't have this one in my archive because I've downloaded all this stuff from newspapers.com. I don't have this one. So I thought, oh, maybe this one didn't get in the newspaper. Ah, alas, it did. I looked it up this morning, and I was like, oh, it did. So I'm going to show you just very briefly what, you know, if you have access to newspapers.com. And I have it because I subscribe to it. It's part of my, it's a kind of a partner thing with my Ancestry subscription. But I can tell you, if you have a robust library in your area, a lot of the libraries have subscriptions to newspapers.com and Ancestry. So if you've got a library card, you can go get access to that stuff, and you could download these things without having to have a subscription. So these are things to look for. And once you get on a roll with these, you kind of develop, and I'll show you, you kind of develop a shorthand for finding them, and you can pretty quickly put together all the blocks from a quilt. So one other thing I wanted to show you in here is double wedding ring. So this is one of those patterns that often you see, like you'll see a double wedding ring quilt, and somebody is trying to, or a quilt top, and somebody is trying to say that like it's from the 1800s. Double wedding ring is a 20th century thing, but we know it was around at least by 1931. So this is one of those things, like, you know, when you're, as far as quilt study, and the provenance of patterns, looking at some of these old books and seeing when they were printed and when something appeared can really help us narrow down when did this become a thing? So we know at least by 1931 this was a pattern. But I have not seen any convincing evidence that it was a pattern before 1900. So, probably in the 1920s, late 1920s maybe, this became a thing. I don't know. But at least we know it's 1931, at least. So, all right, there was 2 sections in here I wanted to read you, so I will put you back on my lovely face. Gosh darn it. I don't know what is going on with my... Okay. So, let me do these pieces. So the first thing, this is her section on quilt materials. And I thought this one was interesting just because we just finished reading about Chintz. She makes reference to some of that stuff. So this is page 31 of this book. And as a reminder, this is 101 Patchwork Patterns by Ruby Short McKim. And this is her section on quilt materials. So to begin with, I want to say something as trite as it is important, and that is use the very best materials that you can afford for any and all handwork. Extravagance is never smart, but good quilt materials are not expensive. It's the sleazy ones, unreliable dyes, and starched cloth that prove expensive in the end. I have to say, I sort of agree with her. I think that there's places you can get away, if you're new to quilting, I think there's places you can get away with, shortcuts. There's lots and lots of gadgets out there that you really don't need. You can make do with a lot of, things you might already have around the household, or, just do things the old school way. But I would say with fabric, you probably want to try and get the best fabric you can afford, simply because you're going to end up, it's easier to sew, you're going to end up with a nicer product than if you went and bought crud fabric. And if you're a recycler, like I am, then, you want to look for fabrics, and, you get used to them, what they feel like, what they look like, that are, a finer weave and, a nicer print, a nicer hand. And you get to know what the dyes are like. You could kind of look at something and go, oh, that red doesn't look stable. But I would say always be careful with your reds. So in fact, she might say something about that here, or maybe I read that somewhere else recently. Anyway, so wash goods is gauged, and by wash goods, she just means like fabric, the stuff that cotton, stuff that you can throw in the wash. Wash goods is gauged by the number of threads per inch. 68 to 72 is a fair grade of percale. 80 square is excellent, the weight we usually use, and some of the very fine imported ginghams run at 120 square. So 80 to 120, and I mean that's threads per inch, right? Threads per square inch is what she said. Think about Egyptian cotton sheets. That stuff runs like 300, 600, like crazy. So, for a quilting cotton or, a sewing cotton, 80 to 120. The threads themselves are bigger and chunkier than, I guess, those 600 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets. Those are like microscopic threads. A firm weave is imperative when one is cutting small triangles and diamonds, where part of each block must be bias. Imagine trying to fit bias sides of rayon crepe or voile into squares, and you can see how totally unfitted such scraps are for quilt making. Never mind, I've seen lots of cotton voile and rayon crepe in quilts. And, people they did what they could do with what they had. But it's frustrating. Stuff that's stretchy, super stretchy on the bias, it's really frustrating. Coarse linens, crash weight cretonne, and pongee, unless deeply seamed, ravel out too easily to be suitable. Romper cloth and any others that border into ticking texture are too close weave and heavy to quilt as well. I don't know what romper cloth is, but cheap ginghams will shrink enough to pucker in a quilt top. So to the firm weave must be added soft texture. But booty sheen? All right, this is spelled B-U-T-Y, booty, buddy, and then sheen, T-H-C-H-I-N-E. Anyway, it's a permanent luster sateen of the finest quality, which we recommend for excellent results. Sateen does make a really pretty quilt. The finest materials certainly do make the loveliest quilts. The dye problem is mastered with a reasonable amount of care, as vat dyes are usual in even very inexpensive goods. Commercially fast, the dealer will say, which means with any reasonable care they will not run. Very few manufacturers will absolutely guarantee color, and where they do replace, they have told us it was often a case of substandard black thread which had spotted the washing. Quilts are naturally difficult things to launder. A wisp of silk undies may be in, out, and dry in next to no time. Okay, so the term undies was used in 1931. I would not have guessed. So they'll be dry in no time, but a quilt with cotton filler, top and lining all stitched plumply together goes in for no such speedy procedure. When it gets wet, it stays that way long enough to try colors to their limits. We have had quilt colors, yellows and reds, bleed into the white, and in subsequent tubbings, clear again to white. For the priceless quilts, we suggest the French dry cleaning establishments. French dry cleaning. Oh. Wonder what French dry cleaning establishments were up to. Were they different than dry cleaning of today? I don't know. The rather violent coloring of many heirloom quilts is due to their makers' belief that only oil red, oil green, and oil yellow were considered reliable enough to use. Sometimes indigo blue was admitted to this favored fast group. So the oil ones, they were using, and I'm trying to remember now, I read about this recently. It was somehow the way that the fabric was treated with some type of oil, like oil, petroleum type of oil. I don't know. Probably wasn't petroleum, but some type of oil to make it color fast. And I think maybe that the coloring agents were like fat soluble or oil soluble versus water soluble. I think that's really what it boils down to. If you think about oil paint versus like watercolors or acrylic paint, watercolors versus oil colors, or if you painted watercolors, it can be washed off. If you paint with oil paint, forget about it. It's there forever. The history of quilt materials is almost as varied and fascinating as the history of quilt names. For instance, our chintz may be traced back through various family connections and changes of name to the India chintzes, brought over from India by the East India Trading Company. This very fine cotton material was charmingly designed in much the same motifs of Paisley fame. Paisley being Paisley, Scotland. And if you know about that tradition, the Paisley shape was originally, founded in Paisley, Scotland. It went over to India, and then it came back with the Indian printing kind of taking its provenance, I guess. So, because when we think of that, like, sort of dense Paisley stuff, we often will connect that, maybe not necessarily to chintzes, but the Indian cottons. They really started in Scotland. The Persian influence, particularly the Persian pear, which women called the pickle pattern or gourds, peacock feather designs with pineapple, pomegranates, and certain exquisitely unreal but lavish flowers all bespeak the Oriental influence. Chintz came both glazed and unglazed. Interesting. Imported unglazed chintz became English-made flowered calico. And then there came a day when the British sheep and flax farmers framed legislation making it unlawful to produce or wear this cotton stuff so beloved of the feminine heart. MacIver Percival just told us all about this. The stringent law raised such a storm from the ladies that in due time the ban was modified to a tax, but still unpopular. A few of these taxes on tea, stamps, etc., you will recall bore the fruit of real history on both sides of the Atlantic. There is a long list of woven cloths advertised from 1715 on. Dimities, fustians, muslins, cambrics, different sorts of duck, lawn, seersucker. Lawn, guys, remember I mentioned lawn the other day. That might have been on me and Jill's stream. Lawn, seersucker, pelong, the ancestor of long cloth, and nanking, who begat blue denim. All of these and many more found their way into patchwork, but the dearest and most suitable of all was calico. An author who treats this history in full writes that the mainstay of the patchworker was from 17 to 1775 calico, from 1775 to 1825 calico, and from 1825 to 1875 calico. So basically, for 175 years, calico. All right, so I want to find out about French dry cleaning establishments. Let's see. A great majority of quilts are usually made of wash cotton materials, although silks are sometimes used in such patterns as log cabin, grandmother's fan, or the friendship ring, where one's friends are called upon to help furnish beautiful bits to make the patterns as variegated as possible. It's interesting she doesn't talk about crazy patches or crazy quilts here. I don't know. I guess they didn't research them. I don't know. Woolens, even good parts of worn garments, are excellent for the heavy type of coverlet, and such designs as steps to the altar or grandmother's cross are suitable. Woolens are so apt to be dull, practical colors that it is imperative to have some certain unit of red, bright green, orange, or such in each block. While cotton broadcloth, percales, or fine gingham, the calico prints and such are used with muslin for wash quilts. Many women maintain the soft sateen really makes the most gorgeous quilt of all. When the time comes to quilt, you will know why we stress soft materials and why lustrous sateen, which catches light on every little silk-like puff between quilting designs, is so beloved. So that is all about the materials. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about was apartment quilting. And this is interesting because this has got a lot of different names to it. But she calls it apartment quilting, and I think that was like the late 1800s, early 1900s term for it. But other terms for it are quilt as you go, which is what we generally call it today, or potholder quilts. And Pam Weeks of the New England Quilt Museum wrote a wonderful book on, I think her book is called Portable Patchwork, but she's specifically naming and calling them potholder quilts. And, you know, it's what it sounds like. You make small units, you quilt them, and then you stitch them together. And most of the time they're finishing the edges and then stitching them together with some type of like whip stitch or figure eighty kind of thing. Now with more modern quilts, there's kind of a system for how you trim the batting, and you stitch it all together in this like sort of in a way that it's really hard to tell that it was a potholder quilt. However, Ruby McKim is going to tell us how to do apartment quilting. So, apartment quilting. Maybe this should be compartment quilting, but still, it was originated for the woman who lives in tiny rooms, efficiency all over, even to finishing her full-size quilt therein, to its last lovely stitch. This may be done in an apartment that can't accommodate a large picture frame, to say nothing of quilting frames. One young thing wrote, I love how she says all this stuff. One young thing wrote, "We even have collapsible toothbrushes, and yet I am quilting mine own quilt." The secret is this: quilt the blocks separately, and then set them together. A makeshift, says grandmother with a sniff, about as backwards as picking a chicken after it's baked. Ruby McKim had some quips there. But oh, the modern methods we love, the jolly substitutions and shortcuts that leave us time and energy for recreations like quilt making. So after the blocks are pieced and the plain squares stamped for quilting, we may cut a back and inner lining the same size. Spread them smoothly on a table and baste around and through rather firmly. Then you may quilt them on the table or on your lap, taking even stitches which go through the entire thickness. Some quilt a fourth of the quilt this way, or eighths, or single blocks. The quilted sections are joined by sewing top parts with a running stitch on the wrong side. Then smooth the inner linings of cotton to overlap about 1/4 inch and sew back sections together with a blind stitch. The quilting is then continued along the join line. Bias tape in white or a color may be used to cover all seams on the back, making a pattern of squares over it all. So what she describes is fairly consistent with what we do today with, where you're overlapping, you're using 1/4 inch. She doesn't, so she says the inner linings of cotton. But yeah, I feel like today there's this, because, you can use rotary cutter and everything, so it's a little bit more mechanical today than maybe it was back then. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting one. I like it when I find things like that. All right, so let's look at some more Ruby McKim. So now I told you about the bird life quilt. So let us go to my research here. And this is just going to be just a few little tips on so this is my newspapers.com account. And I left up here the information how I used to search this one. Now, I knew this one was called the Bird Life Quilt. So what I did was, you can't always be sure that the newspaper is going to print it the way it makes sense. So not knowing how they would have printed it, I put bird life in quotes. And what quotes do in a search is it makes sure that those two words are shown together, like they are together. The word the phrase bird life is in this search. If I didn't put those together, I could get something that has a newspaper page with the words quilt, bird, and life, and they may not be together at all. Quilt plus bird life, in quotes, doesn't guarantee, but it more likely ensures that they are together. They're definitely going to be together on the same page, but they're more than likely going to be together in the same region of the paper, the newspaper page. So these are all of the different places where bird life quilt appears. There are many. 2,060 matches. Now, some of these are possibly going to be repeats. Some of them, it's going to be a case where the newspaper had a morning edition and an evening edition, and whatever day they printed this pattern, they put it in both. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're going to get something off the wall that is not even what I'm looking for, right? So also, you can see the number of references that you've got via these different states. Interestingly, Kansas only has 11. And typically, Kansas would be the one I look at just to sort out all the other ones, because the Kansas City Star. Now, Oklahoma, 103. Missouri, 132. Now, Kansas City, Missouri. You guys, am I making a huge mistake here? Because there's Kansas City in Missouri and Kansas City in Kansas. Was the Kansas City newspaper, the Kansas City Star, was that a Missouri newspaper, or was that a Kansas newspaper? Or was it both? Because Missouri has 132 references to bird life quilt. Anyway, these are the ways that you can sort this stuff. And notice I didn't put anything in the location, because this could be anywhere in the United States. As for dates, I just happen to know 1929 to 1935 is kind of a good date range to find. Thank you, Druid. So it is Missouri. Okay. All right, Cake. I learned something today. So then these 132 references are probably Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City Star newspaper. So what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, these dates I know are kind of like they're the McKim, McKim was hot on fire period. Now, knowing that the Quaddies, the Quaddies quilt, that was 1916, 1917, I could go as early as that. And in fact, we should probably look for that to see if it actually was printed in the paper, because I said it wasn't, but you never know. I could be totally wrong about that. But anyway, so I started just grabbing some of these so we could look at these. But what I'll do when I'm looking for stuff, the Kansas City Star newspaper based in Kansas City, Missouri, published since 1880. It is the recipient of 8 Pulitzer Prizes, most notable for its influence on the career of Truman. Oh, interesting. And a young Ernest Hemingway honed his writing style in the paper. Very interesting. I did not know these things. All I knew, Kansas City Star is like the mecca of quilt patterns. So anyway, while I'm looking for these kinds of things, the little snippet or the little thumbnail that they give you, the little preview, you can usually tell some things. And so I don't necessarily go through and open every single one, because like looking at this one, and I can see this has got multiple blocks. This one very well might just be a little snippet about the quilt itself and have no pattern in it. So if you open every single one of these, this can take you some time. But I kind of have learned what this stuff looks like. So here's the first one that I pulled open. This one is July 8th, Fort Collins, Coloradoan. And here we see the quilt. And for some reason, I don't know what is up with newspaper.com today, but it was not loading this stuff very quickly. So this one did have the pattern, and this is what it looks like. And this one is the Robin, number 1. So this one we know, Fort Collins newspaper started publishing this on July 8th. It's a Wednesday, so this was probably in the Wednesday paper. And if I'm going to try to do this through the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, then I would go back to my search, and I would make sure that I have taken this date down to 1930, probably 1930 to 1931. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one, 1931. I would take this to 1931 to 1932. Sorry. Just in case, however long it took it to publish. But this one probably was done by fall, if they were publishing one a week. So, and then sometimes they'll have, a little information in here. One block pattern will be given each week. So there's 24. So you can do the math, 24 weeks, and figure out, what Wednesday that ends on. And then you've got 24 birds, and it explains all of them. This is great. Not all the newspapers would tell you what every block was, but this one does. So you'll know as you go start collecting these and clipping them, you'll know if you're missing something. I had a super hard time with one of the other patterns. It took me forever to find a newspaper that had like this one missing block. So this one is the Seagull. This one is the News from Paterson, New Jersey. And so you can see this stuff would go into syndication, kind of like they all shared these patterns, and they might sometimes print the exact same blurb. Sometimes because of space, they would print less. There wouldn't be as much information there, or they would print something totally different. And it was just the newspaper, and the editor and whatever else. This one, this one must have started probably in 1930, because this is the Quail and her baby, Mrs. Quail and her baby. And this is number 15. Yeah, number 15. You see she's even got a little number there. So I don't know that it's necessarily like intended for you to stitch that in there, but it'll definitely help you keep track of them. So, but yeah, Mrs. Quail and her baby. Was that something that the Des Moines Register made up, or was that what Ruby McKim called it? Who knows? Also, what's kind of fun about looking for these newspaper quilts is that they were typically published in sort of the, sometimes they would be with like the fashion and like the women's topics, but a lot of times they're kind of crammed there in the back of the newspaper with things like, news of interest, contests. I mean, this is all like just the bizarre stuff that they would print in the newspaper. Like, Muriel has a new Mabel has a new typewriter. So I don't know, what is this, Mother Bluebird? Yeah, this is something interesting. I've never seen this, Mother Bluebird. This must have been some little thing that you could write into the newspaper that kids could do. That's what it seems to be. You also have the comics. And I have found some really interesting stuff in the comics. Oh, these look like they are probably racist. It looks like a little bit of blackface. Ew. The Cats and Jammer Kids. Okay, that's a pretty famous cartoon, but I think that there's some maybe questionable stuff in there. I don't know. This guy looks like he's got blackface on. So, but yeah, and then and if you're not familiar with newspapers.com, you can also jump between pages, and of course, mine doesn't want to do this. It's acting weird today. But anyway, typically you can jump between pages so that, oh, now it's going to work. Oh, yeah, here's the rest of the comics. Mr. and Mrs. Oh, who knows what that's about. It's loading very slowly. So I think it's newspapers.com is having an issue today. So that is the search for the bird life quilt. And I'm going to go in there later and do this. I will not bore you with the rest. But here's one that I will show you. This, for whatever reason, even though I've said I wanted bird and life together, this probably is protection of a bird's life. No, where'd it go? Yeah. So this one is not about the quilt. This one is about something, Audubon and birds, and then you've got an article about quilting, which is the Carrie Hall and Rose Kretinger book. So you can see you're sometimes going to find things that are not what you're looking for, but this is also how, when you're doing research, you can fall down another rabbit hole because you'll find things and you're like, oh, wow, maybe I should look up reviews of Carrie Hall and Rose Kretzinger's book in the 30s when it came out. Okay. That's how your research goes sideways. For things like that, this is where you clip it or you bookmark it or you grab the link and set it aside for later because it's not the research topic that you are going. That's not the road we want to go down right now. Just a little tip if you're getting into research. It is a mistake many of us make. I can tell you that. It is so easy, especially with a topic like quilts that you love, to fall down this rabbit hole and just, go down and look, looking at a lot of stuff. So, all right. Now let me go back to me for a second so I can sort through my stuff here. I will show you my newspaper quilts. So I've researched a number of Nancy Cabot, Nancy Lee, Nancy Page. For some reason, a lot of these these fake named quilt and craft people were named Nancy for some reason. Nancy Page, her real name was Florence Leganke. I don't know why Nancy Page sounds, but I guess Florence Leganke just sounds weird. But oh, here's a quilt comic. This is one of those things I stumbled upon. And I probably have showed this before. We're gonna digress for 1 second. Let me move a little bit. So this is this is from 1929. This is a comic strip called When Mother Was a Girl by Chick Young. And this is so funny because you look at like the innuendo here. Do you think I ought to ask him, Mother? As long as you're engaged, I guess it will be all right. Oh my God, what is she talking about? Oh, Julius, there's been something I've been wanting to ask you for so long, but I just can't gain the courage. And he says, oh, come on now, Sophia, you should be afraid to ask anything of me. And then she says, well, I'm making a patch quilt, and I wondered if you would give me your old neckties and derby linings. And So this 1929, this is kind of long after crazy quilts kind of started to wane in popularity, but there's still this trope there that women were begging, borrowing, and stealing the men folks ties and other thing. I guess derby linings, hat linings were maybe, they were silk, so they were trying to get these things. So when I found this, I was like, there's some provenance here. We can, we've got some information about the concept of crazy quilts and, taking ties. We've got some, not provenance, but we've got, a line of inquiry here. We've got a date. All right. So the Ruby McKim stuff. So there's a flower quilt, a fruit basket quilt, a patchwork, rhyme land, the state flowers, and the toy shop window quilt, which is terrifying. So let's start with the flower garden quilt. I believe this is the one, I think, yeah. So this is the one that has a fence. So she's got the information here to piece this picket fence border, which I think is adorable. And then here are all of these flowers. You go back. Oh, crud. We'll start at 1. Oh, well, this is 11. I must have mislabeled this one. This one is Chinese lantern, the 11th design. Carnation, 10. I must not have put these in order. Yeah, I didn't. I realize what I did now. So, okay, these are not in any order. Usually I have these in order. But yeah, I mean, you see, and she's got her little copyright notice in there, and then, the different newspapers. Here's information about the quilt contest. And the thing to make the point about these particular, the flower garden designs, is they're not particularly blocky, but they fit in a block. They're very, you've got everything that's along an edge does have that blocked off aspect to it. So they're made to fit very tightly in a block. And, again, we're just looking at, this is her way of doing things. This is her aesthetic. So this is an alternate block. And so this is if you're alternating your embroidered blocks with just open, blank blocks, solid fabric. This is the quilting pattern that you could put in those blank blocks. And I think they're very pretty. They're simple, and I know I have seen quilts, quilt made of this. I don't remember if it was a single color or if it was multicolored. I kind of feel like it was multicolored. They'd use different colored floss, and then obviously all the leaves were green and stuff. I think. I could be mixing it up with a different one, but I think I've seen that. But you see, I mean, they're very simple, but yeah, pretty cool. And she definitely has come up with a lot of different flowers. Hey Kenny, how are you? Now let's skip forward to the State Flowers quilt, because you're going to see these are also very similar. Now let's see. I don't know what I was doing here. Okay, I've got all the states named. I don't have these in order necessarily. So typically when they'd start publishing, they'd start, and this isn't always exact, but for the most part, most of the newspapers, when they were going to start printing one of these patterns, they would show you what the whole thing looked like, and kind of explain, when they're going to be published. This one's beginning Wednesday in the morning issue of the Star Telegram. And so you would know what to look out for. And sometimes it would tell you how, I want to say how much fabric you would need, but it would tell you you want solid cottons and you want some embroidery floss and to help you, get started. And then they would often announce things that were available in addition to the pattern. So this one, you've got the State Flowers quilt, but it is also printed as a coloring book that the children can have. So think about this. So we've only got 48 states right now. But you could go through here and you could collect these patterns as they come out in the paper throughout however long, 48 weeks. It's a while. It's going to take you a year to get them all. Or you can just get this book and probably trace them. It's not real specific. It's not really telling you that, but I would put money on the fact that this coloring book is just the patterns. It's just the embroidery patterns that are probably printed in color and or printed in a way that the kids could color them. And you could just buy that and not worry about collecting these for free. So very, very interesting marketing. They're on to something. Sometimes, let's see. Oh no, let's see. I'm looking for one. Here we go. So often when you have these really intense ones with 48 blocks, there's going to be a contest. And so that's what this is. This is from the Indianapolis Star, and $500 in prizes. And so the first pattern is September 13th, which is the Sunday following this ad. And so what do they say? So the rules. Any person living in Indiana can enter. 2 drawings will appear each week until 48 designs have been printed in the paper. All quilts must be made from the designs and actual patterns printed. And I'm looking for dates here. Okay, February 21st, 1932. And this is, so this is 1931. So these must be published more than one a week, because September 31 to February of 32 is not 48 weeks. So these must have been coming out faster. So yeah. Now these are the prizes. So the first prize is $100. Then you go down to 75, 50, 25, 20, 15, 10, 10, 10. $7.50. Would you not be excited to win 21st prize of $7.50? So let's see. 12th place through 31st place. I'm sorry. Yeah. 22nd place through 31st place are $5. And then there's 20 prizes of $2 each. So lots of fun. So let's look at these real quick. I think I just skipped one. So Missouri and Maryland, the Black-Eyed Susan. And you can see she's got although Washington, she's got Wash and not WA. So it's interesting how she chose to use the abbreviations. Now, I don't know, from a postal standpoint, in 1931, were they using those postal? I don't know. You'd think they were, but I don't know. Arizona. Let's see. Arizona is a cactus. And Columbine in Colorado. Some of these I'm like, the mountain laurel of Connecticut. Okay. Let's see. This one, will be carried again Wednesday. Hereafter, the quilt pattern will appear in the Saturday edition, but will not be carried on Sunday. So they tell you, they're going to tell you these things sometimes. I have also read that there are times when they would just skip a week and not print that week's pattern. Like it never, it never appeared. Some newspapers just, I guess they figured, this stuff's not that important. Or by the end of this thing, we're going to offer it to them for sale. They'll get it then. So, this stuff was treated not very valuably at times, in my opinion. Even though I know for a fact people did clamor for these things and they saved them religiously. Idaho. She does not have the abbreviation for Idaho. Illinois is abbreviated ILL. That's so interesting to me. I wonder if there's a reason for that. I also got to know, as I was collecting these, like what the actual state flowers were. And I'm curious to know if any of them have changed. Like the trailing arbutus is the Massachusetts flower. Jill, I don't know if you're still here, but the trailing arbutus. I know that the black-eyed Susan is definitely Maryland's flower. It still is. Maine, the pine cone. That's not a flower. Yeah, so. Oh, the magnolia, I think, is Mississippi and Louisiana, right? Did I not just see? Yeah, so Louisiana and Mississippi have a magnolia. So, but she's done different versions of the magnolia. So that's nice. You're not stuck with the exact same one with just a different state on it. Bitterroot, Montana. Yeah, so, and now North Carolina, the daisy, for some reason I'm thinking that is not currently their state flower, but I could totally be wrong. But Mississippi is the magnolia state. I did not know that. Now I do. Oh, now here's one. This, I don't have what state or what newspaper this is, but this one printed two of them at the same time. So this kind of tells me that some of these newspapers were definitely doubling up when they've got this, probably in the case of that contest. They didn't want this to go on for a year. They wanted it to be focused. And so, they were doubling up on them. Sometimes they doubled up at the end too, I've noticed. So, lilac, New Hampshire. Maple, New Jersey. Now see, again, these aren't state flowers. This is like a state leaf or a state tree. Yucca, New Mexico. I did not know that's what yucca flowers looked like. So yeah. New York and the rose. Oregon, holly grape. Rhode Island, violet. So anyway, these are fun. But again, you can see very, very similar in that kind of blocky, setting to get inside that quilt block and fill the whole block, but still got nice curves and things. Now, let us go back and look at the fruit basket quilt. I have not looked at this one I haven't looked at this one in a while. This one I downloaded as PDF, so we'll have to go through this one differently. Okay, I'm remembering what this one. This one's actually a pretty cool quilt. So, yeah. So this one, you piece the baskets. Nevada is the silver state. Ah, yeah. It just occurred to me that California is Golden State because of the gold rush. And Nevada being the silver state because there's silver mining there, right? So anyway, this, you've got where you piece the block, the basket, and then this up here is either applique or embroidery. And I don't remember. I think it's embroidery. Let us find out. So this is the quilting. I know that. So you can see this is the quilting pattern. There, this little viney thing with leaves. And then these are the pieces to piece the actual basket. There's another quilting pattern. Let's see what this one is. Oh, this is for the corners. This is pretty. So, or not the corners, this, or whatever you call this, the cutoff insets when you're doing an on point. What do you? I'm not sure what you call those. The edges, I guess, the edge blocks. So that's kind of a neat thing. It's clearly peaches, lemon, cherry. Yeah. Setting triangles, yeah, that's probably makes sense. Setting triangles. Okay, so here's grapes. Come on, PDF. What is this? I'm getting some kind of... There we go. All right, what does she say? How to do this? So we have this Malaga grapes. I don't know what Malaga grapes are. There's some fancy grapes. I don't know. So here's the good news. Here's block number 1, the Dayton Daily News Fruit Baskets series. So this is really, really fuzzy. Trace lightly. Make separate tracings. Allow a seam larger all the way around each group of colors. Yeah, so this, I think, is, the expectation is you are indeed going to applique these. This is not applique as I thought. I mean, our embroidery as I thought. So you're actually going to take this stuff and you kind of can see what I'm guessing are the little stitching lines and then kind of the overlap is what this sounds like to me. I have never seen this quilt made. It kind of sounds hard, at least with these grapes. Flowering dogwood is North Carolina, enacted in 1941. Okay, I was right. You know, my guess is North Carolina probably didn't have a state flower at the time, and she or somebody picked one and said, this is what we're going to use. Kumquat. This one might be a little bit easier to look at and see what the instructions are. Unfortunately, some of these newspapers, in the process that they use to make them electronic, the text just doesn't come out really well, or they were never that great. Kenny. State flower of New Jersey is the traffic cone. Entirely possible. I'm sorry, New Jerseyans. It's not fun to drive on your turnpike. All right, so the picturesque little fruits follow the Malaga grapes and the limes. They assure a splash of brilliant orange. So the 5 foremost kumquats are to be traced onto brilliant orange and a seam larger than this drawing, as we do for all appliques. They may be cut in a group of 4 and 1, or each as a separate ellipse. Okay, so what she's saying is, because they're all attached, you could cut them. You could cut this all as one big piece, or you could cut them out individually and overlap them. So that looks like a lot of work to me. But I do love applique, so I would definitely be inclined to try this one out. So let's see. Let's look at Queen Anne cherries. Those seem like an interesting fruit to look at. Blueberries is another one I think is interesting. Now look at this. So she's clearly thought through how irritating it might be to applique some of this stuff. You know, by like you could cut this out in one big piece, and I guess kind of, I don't know. This feels like it's a lot of effort. Yeah. I don't know. This very well might be. You just don't see this one a lot because it was not an easy one to make. Yeah, I don't have my flower vines quilt. That is another newspaper quilt. I don't have that one up anymore. But it was the flowers on it were a lot simpler than these. So here we go. There's the blueberries. The blueberries. What a pain in the rear I feel like it would be to do these. Look at that. So you can applique this one big clump, but then you got to cut this out, I guess. There. Do like a little reverse applique. That feels like a lot of work. A lot of tracing and a lot of work. But I bet it's beautiful. You know, if you had some really pretty fabrics. Ooh, let's look at the pineapple. Because I bet that one's got a lot of embroidery on it. Because you got to make those lines, you know. I don't know what you call the pieces of a pineapple. Oh, okay. So it's just a half a pineapple. But yeah, so you've got those little, I don't know what they call those, the eyes and the little, so this one's a simpler one. Yeah, you know, these really do look like they might be a pain in the rear. I downloaded these a really long time ago. But there aren't that many of them. I don't know how many blocks. These are 32 blocks, I guess. Yeah. I think actually I've got the grapes twice. So and I might be missing one. In any event, I think this one might be fun to try and probably get bored with or angry at a couple blocks in. Okay, patchwork quilt. This one I think is some of these traditional designs. So let's look at this one. And actually, you know what? This is not Ruby McKim. Let me flip through this real quick. Yeah, this is not Ruby McKim. This is Nancy Page. However, I'm going to go ahead and go through this one real quick because if you joined us for Tallulah Gilbert Bottoms, the book about her that Jill and I were reading, our little book club on Tuesday nights, you might recognize this. This is Saucy Bird. You remember this little pattern with the urn and then the different versions of these birds and the different flowers. This is Saucy Bird, and you can see it was called Saucy Bird. It wasn't something that they made up. This is actually literally in here. And so like I said, this is Nancy Page, Florence Leganke. Okay, there's a bunch of other stuff in here that I thought Meek Bird was in here too, but I guess it's not. Let's get rid of that. Because I obviously labeled everything in that folder wrong. All right, Rhineland quilt. Let's look at this. So this is your standard Mother Goose kind of rhymes and things. So Old Mother Hubbard. We got Tommy Tucker. And this one's interesting because she's done this font, which is similar to her like lettering font. But she's done this for each of the blocks, so you know what the block is. Tommy Tucker, Old King Cole. We're gonna see him again, I think, in a different quilt, if I remember. I don't know what happened there. So Old King Cole. We got Mother Goose. This reminds me very much of there's a Mother Goose book that it's in the public domain now, but it's on the cover as the Mother Goose, like that flying on the goose. Simple Simon, fishing in a barrel. Little Miss Muffet. Excuse me. And I love the way she did this. The legs are covering up part of the word, you know, the name. But it's still pretty cool. I guess it gives depth. By Baby Bunting. What I can't figure out with this one is we've got a child in a rabbit suit. And there's a diaper pin there. But I'm like, what on earth is that pinning? I don't know what all this is right here. They also, I guess she's also showing how this could be put on like applique or embroidered onto like a little garment. It doesn't have to be a quilt. Humpty Dumpty. And this is what the quilt is supposed to look like. And I have seen a version of it. I think there might be one or more than one on the Quilt Index. But you can see how you know, it was meant to be put together. This one is a really good one, I think, because it's very detailed. Sometimes the drawings and stuff it's really hard to tell what's going on in the little schematic. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Now this is the quilting pattern, which is this kind of cute little floofy looking duck. Oh, hello. This is Nancy. She wants to get in on the action. She's a big fan of Ruby McKim. Peter's wife, Peter Pumpkin Eater. Jack Be Nimble. Jack and Jill, but we only have Jack falling down. Barnaby Cross, or Banbury Cross. Banbury Cross. Bo Peep. Polly Kettle, the Queen of Hearts. Skipped one. Seesaw, Marjorie Daw. And then this is the other pattern. This, I don't know, fancy lady duck with these little, they look like Dutch shoes. Jill's don't fall down. And we're back to Mother Hubbard. Oh, no, I guess I had two Mother Hubbards. Because there's Tom Piper's son with his pig. And Bobby Shafto. And then Mary and Her Little Lamb. Hey Diddle Diddle. Rain, Rain, Go Away. And so depending on which newspaper I got these from, sometimes they were printing two at a time. Like, you know. But not all of them did. They kind of did their own thing. And then this is a third duck, I think. This is the border duck. Shave a Pig. Wee Willie Winky. Rockabye Baby. Curly Locks. Lucy Locket. And I think that's the last one. Yep. So those are pretty cute, right? Now we get to the stuff the nightmares are made of. Nancy, close your eyes if you have to. The toy shop window quilt, I don't know, you guys. It's got some weird stuff in it. So this is the schematic for the quilt, and you can see these things, but wait till you see them up close. So there's the tree. That's a reasonable looking tree. I'm gonna have to go backwards here because I think that was the last one. This one's in the wrong folder too. My gosh, I was so sloppy with my folders. Okay. The star. It's an okay looking star. The marionette. Well, it's a marionette, right? Okay. It's a little weird, but it's okay. This bear, I don't know what has happened with this bear. You guys. Now, maybe Ruby McKim was not so great with perspective. I'm assuming this bear is supposed to be maybe drooling honey. I don't know, but this is very disturbing bear. I can't get with this bear. It's you know, the perspective going on with its feet. Oh, it's weird. This mouse is clearly made to look like a toy because he's got like a joint here for his arm. He reminds me of a Robert the bear's on drugs. He reminds me of Robert Crumb. Do you guys know who the cartoonist Robert Crumb is or was? If you were into like classic rock before it was classic rock. You know, the actual 60s and 70s. I want to say, was it the Grateful Dead, I think? And then they used some of his illustrations. He did like concert posters and Bad Acid Trip Ted, yes. But the one that's really, like, I think would really stick in people's minds, if you don't want to go, like, Google who's Robert Crumb, it's a guy who's, like, leaned way back, kind of, like, and then his legs are, like, he's walking, and his one foot is, like, his foot is way out, you know? So and it's something like, you know, keep trucking or something like that. That's Robert Crumb. This looks like Robert Crumb work. So Google Robert Crumb and you tell me. There's another one that's like that too. And so you start to wonder, was Robert Crumb, did he see Ruby McKim's stuff in the newspaper when he was a kid? Who knows? The goofy face, yeah. All right, so the mouse. All right, the train. It's a reasonable train. The stocking's a little weird. It's a stuffed stocking. It's full of things, which a child would love, certainly. But, you know, it's hard to tell what it is because it's so stuffed with things. This is supposed to be a dog. Y'all, I don't know what is up with this dog. The best I can say is that I guess it is supposed to be some sort of dog with long floppy ears. But my gosh, why? What is she done here? Like, why would she not have this as a separate piece to make the ear? It's just like this bizarre Star Wars alien dog. Like, I don't understand. You know, and I guess there's like this stitch you're supposed to put there that like makes the like its chin, but then like, why is that? You guys explain this to me. I can't like wrap my head around this. Yeah, he's trying to see, is he mournful or is he just trying to appear dignified? I think he's trying to figure out, like, why is my head and ear all one big drippy thing? You know? Bad acid trip Robert Crumb indeed. And as a side note, I have actually seen this quilt made up, a picture of it, and it's just as terrifying as it is here. It's all right. So the Noah's Ark is cute. Jackalope. Oh, if only. Except they've actually said it's the pup. And hello, Marianne, by the way. It is nice to see you. Thank you for chatting. Okay. Oops. The drum. That's okay. It's an okay looking one. Fold up on the dotted line. Could be. Maybe. Actually, let's go back and see. Does it say to do that? If you're applicating the blocks, let's see. One line of unity throughout. Let's see. Small star. For red. Twitch. Yeah. No. I don't think it. I'm not seeing anything here. Rather dainty doggy hue. Red necktie. Eyeball is black. Nose red. Yeah, no. All right, now we've got the toy soldier. He's okay. He's kind of got that Robert Crumb look to him too, in my opinion. The rocking horse. Okay, all right. Now this thing. This is a nightmare toy. It's supposed to be a cat. And now, you know, my guess is she's looking at like a real toy when she's drawn these things. But this, I mean, what do you guys think? I would not, as a child, would not be happy with this toy. It would disturb me. And if the toy didn't disturb me, this drawing of it most certainly would. It's just got a little, like, coming alive in the middle of the night to steal your breath and I don't know. And I think, is that it? I think that's the last one. Yeah. So there's a couple of things in the toy shop quilt which are weird, and I don't know what she was thinking. No. But yeah, I'll be sure to make sure that this is in your guys' nightmares. Cat burglar. Yes. But I mean, it doesn't. I mean, would you call it a cat if somebody put this in front of you? It would be like, oh yeah, that's a cat. I mean, it's a weird looking cat, but it's a cat. No, I would be like, that is some sort of like demon that has been brought up from hell just for the purpose of this quilt. I know I'm being hyperbolic, but it's just it's a weird looking thing. So, and I can't remember what date this is. Let's see. This is 1935 in the Missoulian. Let's see if it's the same thing in New Jersey. So this is one of her later ones, than other than the ones we've looked at earlier. Yeah, 1935 in Paterson, New Jersey too. So, although those are the Rhineland though. In any event, yeah. So that's Ruby McKim. Like I said, she had her own studio. They seem to faintly resemble Mickey Mouse. Yeah, like that cat one. Yeah, it's kind of got that vibe. And yes, the arms and legs, and when it's got pants and stuff. Yeah, you're right. It does have that sort of Steamboat Willie kind of look to it. And maybe that was just in the zeitgeist of 1935. I can't remember when Steamboat Willie arrived on the scene. A carrot nose on a cat, right? It did look like a carrot. That's the weird thing. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. But of course, we don't want to badmouth Ruby McKim because, like, again, she was really prolific. She did lots of illustrations. She did, these picture books. Like, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on her Quilters Hall of Fame entry, but, she's got these storybooks, picture books for boys and girls, picture book of travel, the picture book of flying, like all of these things. I mean, people had, like, they tapped her to do these illustrations. So she must have been, she must have been considered influential, or, that people like to look at her stuff. So here's the general information about her. It's on a separate page. So let me just read this to you. This is, again, from the Quilters Hall of Fame. Let's see. Now I kind of want to make that quilt, but slightly altered bits to be 100% less nightmare. Right? I feel like you could probably, if you wanted it to be Christmas, like a Christmas oriented one, I feel like you could probably find some cuter stuff, but I do like the mouse, even though he is very Robert Crumb looking. I do like the mouse. So you have to let me know, Mardim, if you track these down and actually make them. All right, so let me read you this from the Quilters Hall of Fame. Ruby Irene Short was born July 7th, 1891 in Millersburg, Illinois, to Morris Trimble Short, a frontier missionary for the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now the Community of Christ. Interesting. How is that so Latter-day Saints? I mean, that's the Mormon Church. Is this the reorganized church? Is that an off split? I'm wondering of Mormons. Interesting. I'm fascinated by religion, you guys, and because I'm not, I was not raised particularly religious, so I'm always fascinated when I see like a church or a religious group that I'm not familiar with. I have to look into that. But let me know if you guys know. Are they Mormon? Were they an offshoot of Mormonism? Okay, and her mother was Viola Vernon Short. In 1899, they moved to Independence, Missouri. Missouri's like a hotbed at the turn of the century. There's a lot going on there. Although Morris died 2 years later, Viola decided to stay in Independence, and Ruby graduated from Independence High School in 1910. She won the coveted Art Award in her senior year and served as the art editor for the high school yearbook. So she's, even as a young woman, she's definitely immersed in the arts. Her first works in print are the school yearbook, which featured her whimsical pen and ink drawings. In an era when young girls were usually sheltered at home until marriage, in 1910, at the age of 19, she set off to New York City to study design with Frank Alva Parsons. That's a name you might know. The Parsons is the School of Design. Yeah. To study design with Frank Alva Parsons at the New York School of Fine Arts and Fine and Applied Arts, today known as Parsons, the new school for design. Excited by everything in the big city, her letters home were filled with drawings of whatever she was creating, ceramics, jewelry, or portraits of studio models. Cool. She did this kind of correspondence for the rest of her life. She began teaching in 1911. She went back to Missouri and was teaching in 1911. 1912 was supervisor for drawing, a position that covered grades 1 through 12. So that's, I guess, all of the school kids. She was the art teacher, or the head of the art teachers. In 1916, she started teaching at the Kansas City Manual Training High School and sponsored a club for students who are interested in fine arts. Yeah, that probably is it. Let me see more of them. Let me copy that link. Let me put it in here and see if that's what we're looking at. Oh, whoops. No, that wasn't what I tried. Let's see. Yes. I believe that is it. Oh, and that is right. I forgot. There is a McKim Studios. Yeah, there's a McKim Studios website. And so what Mara Dim just put in there in the chat goes directly to this pattern, but you can buy these, all of her patterns. You can navigate around. If you didn't want to have to deal with newspapers.com. I'm cheap. I have newspapers.com, so I will get them all eventually. But yeah, you can definitely find these. I don't know, can you order this directly from there? I don't see an order button, but yes, that is it, Marta. Okay. So, in 1916, she's teaching at that high school. And this is the year when her needlework designs were first published in the Kansas City Star. So I'm guessing that Quaddy Quilties was in the Kansas City Star. So I'm gonna have to research and find that. She married her former high school classmate Arthur McKim in 1917, and their first child, Betty, was born in 1918. Marilyn is their second child. They have a son now. Let's see. I'm skimming here. I'm pretty sure they had a son. I'm not seeing where she was. I may be blipping out on this, but anyway, so in 1931, her husband oversaw the publication of the book, which we were just looking at, the 101 Patterns. After it was published, they went to Europe to explore other publishing markets. Yes, totally forgot about this part. So in the mid-30s, so they went to Australia, came home with for a contract for paper in Australia. So they didn't go to Australia. They just came home with contact in Australia. But they had this new idea for business, and that would be the Kimport dolls. So this is a business that they did the rest of their life. And it is with their son, Kim. Yes, they had a son and they named him Kim. His name was Kim McKim. That is cruel and unusual. I don't know. When people do that, I mean, I get it. If you decide, like you're going to become a used car salesman and your last name is Johnson and you're like, I'm going to call myself Johnny, even if that's not my first name. But it seems to be that they named their son Kim McKim. So bizarre. Yeah. So I'm looking to see. So she died in 1976. So she lived quite a while. Arthur died in 1967. So her two personal mottos were, 1, if you don't feel good, put on your company face and keep going. And then her other personal motto was, you only fail when you don't try. So I like that. I like Ruby. She's pretty cool. So Kimport dolls is, I had heard of it, but I don't think I really ever researched them a whole lot, and I'm trying to remember what they look like. Let's just check that real quick. Let me Google and see what they look like, because I don't remember. I feel like this might be something where I went searching and I found something else. Okay. They are kind of not what I expected. This is Maria and Michelangelo. Let me share my screen. So this is tagged Kimport. So I think this is that cloth doll style where their faces are actually... Oh, McKim Revivals also has an Etsy shop. Oh, cool. I'll have to look at that in a sec. But it looks like what it is it's like sometimes it's a knit, and sometimes it's just this very fine fabric that has been stretched over might be plaster, or I'm trying to think what else I remember reading that sometimes it could have been wood, I think. But in any event, it's like a blank face that then this fabric is stretched over. Sometimes it's padded, and they use like a starch medium, and they stretch it over, and then they can paint the face. And this isn't just the McKim dolls. This is all dolls of this period. And so you'll often see these types of dolls available. They're not terribly expensive if you're a doll collector, but these are quite interesting. Looks like there's a little book. No. Some kind of little book that goes with them. I think here looks like. Interesting. So let's see, McKim Studio Revivals. Let's see if I can find that. So I think this is a relative that does this. This is like her daughter or her granddaughter, I think. Yes, Marilee McKim. I think she's her granddaughter, maybe. So yeah, this looks like a whole bunch of different kinds of Ruby McKim stuff and Ruby McKim inspired stuff. Oh God, this is stuff I've never seen before. Look at this pansy applique. Oh, look at that. That's really cool. Yeah, so this is a Ruby design. How cool. Yeah, I did not know that she was on Etsy. I only knew about that website, and the website seems a little bit difficult to maneuver. The Three Little Pigs, this is one that I had been interested in for a while, and I'd started looking for the part, and I think I have all the pieces to it. Ruby Rabbit Hole McKim. Absolutely. Now, what's weird about this one is the pigs look okay, but look at the wolf. The wolf is so bizarre. I had forgotten about this one. You've got the wolf is like, he's some kind of like hobo. He's terrifying. This one I have seen made as well. Actually, fairly recently I saw this one in person. Oh, here's Arthur and Ruby. So yeah, it's her grandparents. Now that's interesting how she's aged from that picture that we looked at on the Coulter's Hall of Fame. Very cool. Well, I'm glad to know that this Etsy shop is here. Here's the Bible history one. This one are the Peter Pan. And this is another one where they're weird looking. They're kind of like, this is the mermaid. And then this one's like Tinkerbell. And I don't know what this is. Oh, it's like a little sprite or something. They're sort of odd. And Nana, this is the dog. So, I don't know, you sometimes wonder, like, what was the deal with... Some of her illustrations are so good. They're so charming, and some of them are just like, what was she thinking? Ah, here's the fruit basket. Oh my goodness, this is what it's supposed to look like. Oh, how pretty. Look at that. I don't think that was in the original one, this floral swag there. This is a really pretty pattern. I like this. Oh, come on. Okay. Yeah, look. Look at the blueberries done in different colors. Oh, the cherries. Oh, I think this one is currants, the middle one. I don't think I showed that one, but that wolf is the forgotten man. A cross between a witch and a hobo, right? Definitely. Yeah. Oh, I like this one made up. And oh my gosh, look at that beautiful quilting in it. You can't see it very well because it's like looks like a batik or a variegated background, but so very pretty. All right, well, we learned something today. What is this one? Celebration Day Book. I don't think I've seen this one either. So what is this? Oh, these are the quaddies. Okay. These are the little quaddie guys. So this is all of them. And I kind of like this one. I think this is the a badger. And then here's the little bluebird guy. And then this is the beaver. And the turtle. Some of them are kind of bizarre. The frog with his like real pointy knees. Yeah. But it's funny that whoever made this one made it with this red and green kind of setting. It doesn't look very childlike that way. It's definitely got a different look to it. The ones I've seen are like pastels, very, very intended for a child, for a child, like a nursery or something. But I can see this one, Celebration Day Book, is meant as like looks like it's got a bunch of other stuff in it. Very cool. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed the Ruby McKim. Oh, here we go. Here's the toy shop window one. Mario, I'm assuming you saw this. It looks like it's a little less expensive than what was on her website. But I have one last thing to show you. I meant to show you on last Thursday, and I didn't. But I will show you now. And that is, you guys are seeing an unedited picture. This is my artist James piece. I have a video, I have a whole bunch of audio and stuff that you're not gonna see until I do the textile talk. But this essentially is what it looks like. Yes, it is a Mobius strip. The quilt is a Mobius strip. And in the video, I do a thing where it's like a close-up, and I I pull it in front of the camera so that you can see it keeps going. So yeah, and then here's the typewriters, and the audio elements are housed in the typewriters. I think I showed this all off, like, was it a week or two ago? So, but yeah, that's it. That's what it looks like. For actual installation, and at this point, the Artist James program is not meant, like, this is not meant to go somewhere and be installed. There will be pictures in the video and all that stuff, but if I were to actually, have it, if it, gallery wanted to show it or something, I have to do some tinkering with the installation of it, because it's a little challenge. It takes a lot of adjusting to get it to sit correctly the way I want it to, and actually this piece needs to come up a little bit more in this picture, but 'tis what it is. This was me and my husband hurriedly trying to get pictures before the sky opened, and it is suspended from its I can't remember what you call these things. They're just like a backdrop frame. It's like two uprights that have like tripod legs, and then it's got a piece that goes across the top. You often see people hang quilts on them. That's what I've got suspended over this, so that holds it upright. Those were like two giant lightning rods. And my husband's like, we got to go in. And I'm like, one more picture. And he's like, no, we got to take this stuff down and go in, or we are going to be electrocuted. So yeah, a backdrop frame. Yeah, that is what it is. So, well, you guys, 2 hours has flown by. I think Mama is a Fan was quilting today. So let me see. Is she still? Yeah. Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Druid. Let me see. Is Mama? Is she's still streaming? Let me find out. No, it looks like she is not. Yeah, looks like she just finished up. She streamed earlier, so. Oh well, I was gonna drop in on her. Will we be here on Thursday? Is Thursday the 4th of July? I don't even know. Oh, it is the 4th of July. Well, here's the thing. I have nothing to do on the 4th of July. And my husband works. He always works the summer holidays. So, and my son is working for a furniture place where they have the sales. So I don't know how much, like, you know, preparation and stuff he might have to go in to do. So I will be here. You know, if you've got nothing going on, come by. Being that it is the 4th and, you know, people might be doing stuff, I might just make it like a, you know, hanging out, stitching kind of nothing, you know, no actual reading or topic. So, but I'll be here. Yeah. And Druid, don't stress. If you've got things to do, I don't need a mod on Friday or on Thursday. I kind of doubt that it's going to be a super wild day. But yeah, if it's a quiet 4th for you, yes, I'll be here. Please come on by. All right. So I am going to, you won't be water skiing or anything. Actually, it is supposed to be miserably hot here on the 4th and the day after. I think it's going to be in the 90s. I want to say they said on Friday it's supposed to be, I want to say it's like in the high 90s, like 95, 96 with a heat index of like 100 and something. Yay, I can't wait. But yeah, so we'll be here. All right. Well, you guys have a fantastic week. I hope you will have a chance to stop by Quilt Nerding tomorrow night and or Wednesday night because we've got stuff going on there. 100 for the 4th. Bleh. Oh, I hear you, Robin. Yeah. Oh, yes. I will be giving this sweet darling. This cat. I know you guys don't see her very often because she just wants some love. She's feeling unloved today. But she's the good one. She's the good girl. I don't know if you can hear her. She's purring and she's rubbing her head against my mic. So, all right, guys, you take it easy. I hope to see you tomorrow and Wednesday. If not, I'm here Thursday. And happy stitching. I hope you're doing something fun this week. So, thank you as always, and I will see you soon. Mwah!